I want to ask you a question, and I need you to answer it honestly. Not for me, for yourself. Is God actually first in your life? Or is he just somewhere on the list? Because most people will say, yes, of course, God is first. But then I watch how they live. I watch what gets their first hour of the morning. I watch what gets their best energy. I watch what they protect at all costs. I watch what they refuse to give up. I watch what they run to when things fall apart. And what I find is that God is not first. He is convenient. People go to God. When the money runs out, they go to God. When the relationship collapses, they go to God. When the doctor gives a bad report, they go to God. When the plan fails and there is nowhere else to turn. That is not putting God first. That is using God as a last resort. And today, I want to show you what happens when you stop treating God as a backup plan and start treating him as the foundation. Because when God is truly first, not second, not third, not somewhere in between, 7 specific things in your life will change completely. And these are not small changes. These are life-altering, destiny-shaping, identity-rebuilding changes. That will affect everything. Your mind, your relationships, your decisions, your future, and your peace. Write the number down. 7 things. Let us begin. Before we go into the 7 things, I want to lay a foundation. Write this down. Whatever you put first in your life determines the direction of your entire life. I said, whatever you put first determines the direction of your entire life. This is not just spiritual wisdom. This is a universal principle. A building that has a wrong foundation will eventually crack. No matter how beautiful it looks on the outside, a tree that has shallow roots will fall, no matter how tall it grows. A life that is built on the wrong priority will eventually collapse, no matter how much it appears to be working. Because foundations determine outcomes. And whatever is first in your life is your foundation. Now, here is what I have observed. Most people have put themselves first. Their ambitions, their emotions, their comfort, their plans, their approval ratings. And they wonder why their life feels unstable. They wonder why they work so hard and still feel empty. They wonder why they achieve so much and still feel lost. They wonder why they have everything they wanted and still feel like something is missing. The problem is not your effort. The problem is not your talent. The problem is not your circumstances. The problem is the order. When you are first, when your ego, your pride, your agenda is the foundation, everything built on top of it is fragile. But when God is first, when the creator of your purpose, the architect of your destiny, the source of all wisdom is the foundation, everything built on top of it is solid. The structure changes when the foundation changes. And today, I am going to show you exactly what changes when you make that shift. 7 things. Write this down. The first thing that changes when you put God first is that your priorities become clear. Now this sounds simple, but I want you to understand how devastating unclear priorities are. Without clear priorities, you are busy but not productive. Without clear priorities, you are active but not advancing. Without clear priorities, you are working but not building. Without clear priorities, you are moving but not going anywhere. Most people are not failing because they are lazy. Most people are failing because they are giving their best energy to the wrong things. They are pouring their first hours into scrolling, consuming, reacting. They are giving their sharpest thinking to things that will not matter in 5 years. They are spending their greatest capacity on urgencies that are not really important. And they call this being busy. But business is not the same as purpose. Write that down. Business is not the same as purpose. A person can be extremely busy building someone else's vision. A person can be extremely active in the wrong direction. A person can be fully occupied with a life that does not belong to them. When God is first, everything organizes itself around what actually matters. You begin to wake up and immediately ask, what is my assignment today? What did God put me here to build? What is worth my best energy? What is noise? And what is signal? You stop running after everything that seems urgent, and you start moving toward what is important. Your schedule begins to reflect your values. Your time begins to reflect your priorities. Your energy begins to flow toward your calling instead of your distractions. Clarity replaces confusion. Purpose replaces pressure. Direction replaces drift. And for the first time in a long time, you know exactly what you should be doing. And you have the conviction to do it. That is what happens when God is first. Your life stops being scattered and starts being focused. Write this down. The second thing that changes when you put God first is that your fears lose their authority. Now I want to be honest with you. Fear does not disappear immediately. I am not going to tell you that. I am not going to give you a shallow promise and call it wisdom. Fear is real. It is powerful. It has been operating in your life for a long time. But here is what I need you to understand. Fear has authority in your life only because something else has not claimed that space. Write that down. Fear has authority in your life only because something else has not claimed that space. When your mind is not anchored in God, it is anchored in uncertainty. And uncertainty is the playground of fear. Fear says, what if it does not work out? What if people leave? What if I fail? What if I am not enough? What if the worst thing happens? And when God is not first, these questions have no answer. So they grow, they multiply, they expand until they fill every corner of your mind. But when God is first, every one of those questions has a response. What if it does not work out? God is still sovereign. What if people leave? God never leaves. What if I fail? Failure is not the end of my story. What if I am not enough? I was never supposed to be enough on my own. What if the worst happens? Even the worst thing cannot separate me from the purpose God placed inside me. See the difference? Fear grows in a vacuum. But a mind anchored in God has no vacuum for fear to fill. This does not mean you will never feel afraid. It means fear will no longer be the final word. It means you will feel the fear and move forward anyway. It means the anxiety will rise and you will not be paralyzed by it. It means the uncertainty will be present and you will not be controlled by it, because something greater has claimed the space. And that something greater is the certainty of a God who sees your future, who holds your destiny, who knew your name before you were even formed. When that becomes your anchor, fear loses its authority. Not all at once, but consistently, progressively, powerfully. Write this down. The third thing that changes when you put God first is that your decisions become wiser. Now let me tell you what I mean by wiser. I do not mean you will never make mistakes. I do not mean every decision will be perfect. I do not mean you will always have complete certainty before you move. What I mean is this: your decisions will begin to come from a different place. Write that down. When God is not first, decisions come from emotion, from pressure, from comparison, from fear of missing out, from the urgent need for approval. Have you ever made a decision because you were afraid of what people would say if you did not? Have you ever rushed into something because you could not stand the discomfort of waiting? Have you ever said yes to something when everything inside you was screaming no, but you ignored it because the pressure was too strong? That is emotional decision making. That is pressure-based decision making. That is the kind of decision making that produces regret. But when God is first, decisions come from alignment. You stop asking, what do I feel like doing? And you start asking, what is aligned with my purpose? You stop asking, what will people think? And you start asking, what is the wise thing to do? You stop asking, what will bring me immediate comfort? And you start asking, what will build my future? You develop the capacity to pause, to wait, to sit in the discomfort of not knowing without rushing to a decision, just to end the discomfort. And that patience, that God first patience, produces a quality of decision making that changes the trajectory of your entire life. Because most people's lives are not destroyed by dramatic failures. They are eroded by a series of small, rushed, pressure-driven, emotion-based decisions that slowly move them away from their destiny. When God is first, that erosion stops. And you begin to build decision by decision, choice by choice, a life that actually leads somewhere. Write this down. The fourth thing that changes when you put God first is that your relationships transform. And I want to be specific here because this is one of the most significant changes and one of the most misunderstood. When God becomes first in your life, two things happen to your relationships simultaneously. Write both of them down. Number one, your capacity to love deepens. Number two, your tolerance for what damages you decreases. Both of these happen at the same time, and both of them are necessary. Your capacity to love deepens because you are no longer loving from a place of need. You are no longer in relationships to fill a void inside yourself. You are no longer using people to validate your worth, confirm your identity, or silence the loneliness. When God is first, you come to people from a place of fullness. You give because you have something to give. You love because love is your nature, not because you need something in return. You become more patient, more forgiving, more willing to do the difficult work of working through conflict instead of running from it. But at the same time, your tolerance for what damages you decreases. Because when God is first, you begin to understand your value. You begin to understand your assignment. And you begin to recognize that not every relationship is compatible with where God is taking you. Some people in your life are not against you, but they are not for your destiny either. They are comfortable with your current version. They are threatened by your growth. They benefit from your limitation. They are used to the version of you that was available for everything, that said yes to everything, that had no boundaries, that showed up for everyone at the expense of their own calling. And when God comes first, that version of you begins to change. And not everyone will celebrate that change. Some people will distance themselves. Some relationships will naturally fade. Some connections that felt permanent will begin to dissolve without drama. Just drift. Do not panic when this happens. God is not punishing you. God is protecting you. He is removing relationships that would compromise your next season and creating space for relationships that will carry your future. The right people, the ones who are truly assigned to your life, will not be threatened by your growth. They will celebrate it. They will challenge you to go further. They will hold the vision with you, even when you struggle to hold it yourself. But first, the wrong ones must go, and they go when God goes first. Write this down. The fifth thing that changes when you put God first is that your identity becomes unshakable. Now, this is one of the most powerful changes on this entire list, because here is the truth that most people live with every single day. They do not know who they are. Not really. They know their name. They know their job title. They know their role in the family. They know how people describe them. But deep inside, when all the noise is gone, they are not sure who they are. And so they spend their lives building their identity on things that shift. They build their identity on their success. But success is not permanent. They build their identity on their appearance. But appearance changes. They build their identity on what people think of them. But opinions change constantly. They build their identity on their relationships, but relationships can end. They build their identity on their performance, but performance fluctuates, and every time one of those things shifts, the identity built on it cracks. This is why so many high-achieving people feel completely empty. This is why people who have everything still feel like nothing. This is why the most accomplished person in the room can also be the most insecure, because the foundation is wrong. But when God is first, your identity is no longer built on what shifts. It is built on what is permanent. The same God who created the universe took the time to design you specifically. He placed gifts inside you that no one else carries in the same combination. He assigned a purpose to your life that was determined before you were born. He called you by name, not by your performance, not by your achievements, not by your popularity, by name. And when that truth becomes your foundation, when you actually believe it, not just as a concept, but as a conviction, something inside you stabilizes. You stop living for approval. You stop performing for validation. You stop changing yourself to fit into spaces that were never designed for you. You walk differently. You speak differently. You carry yourself differently, not with arrogance, with quiet, settled, unshakable confidence. The confidence of a person who knows exactly who they are and exactly who they belong to. Write this down. The sixth thing that changes when you put God first is that your discipline transforms. Now let me tell you something about discipline that most people have completely backwards. Most people think discipline is about willpower. They think it is about forcing yourself to do hard things. They think it is about grinding and suffering and white-knuckling your way through resistance. And that kind of discipline, the willpower-based kind, always collapses, because willpower is a finite resource. It runs out. And when it runs out, the habits fall apart, the routine breaks down, and you feel like a failure for not being strong enough. But here is what I have discovered. The most disciplined people in the world are not disciplined because of willpower. They are disciplined because of purpose. Write that down. Discipline sustained by purpose is more powerful than discipline sustained by willpower. When you know why you are doing something, when your actions are connected to a calling greater than yourself, the resistance changes. It does not disappear, but it loses its power. Because now you are not fighting yourself to show up. You are showing up because you understand that what you are building is significant, that it matters beyond you, that God is watching what you do in the hidden places, that every act of obedience in private is laying the foundation for something public. When God is first, your morning routine is not just productivity, it is preparation. When God is first, your work is not just labor, it is contribution. When God is first, your growth is not just personal improvement. It is the development of a vessel that God intends to use. And that understanding that your discipline is tied to something eternal changes everything about how you show up. You become the person who does not quit. Not because you are extraordinary, but because you are driven by something that is bigger than the difficulty of the moment. And that is the most powerful kind of discipline there is. Write this down. The seventh thing that changes when you put God first, and this is the most comprehensive change of all, is that your perspective on life completely shifts. Now I want you to think about this carefully. Perspective is everything. Two people can experience the exact same event and walk away with completely different realities based solely on perspective. One person loses a job and sees the end of their life. Another person loses the same job and sees the beginning of a new direction. One person goes through a painful relationship ending and sees failure and rejection. Another person goes through the same ending and sees protection and redirection. One person faces a season of waiting and sees delay and punishment. Another person faces the same season and sees preparation and positioning. The event is the same. The perspective is different, and the perspective determines the response. And the response determines the outcome. When God is not first, your perspective is limited to what you can see. And what you can see is always incomplete. You cannot see the full story. You cannot see how this chapter connects to the next. You cannot see what this difficulty is building in you. You cannot see who you are becoming through this process. So you react to every challenge as if it is the end. You interpret every delay as failure. You experience every loss as punishment. You treat every setback as evidence that life is against you. But when God is first, your perspective expands beyond what you can see. You begin to understand that nothing is wasted. Not the pain, not the delay, not the loss, not the season of silence, not the relationship that ended, not the plan that fell apart, all of it. Every single experience is material. God is the greatest builder in existence, and He does not waste materials. Every broken piece of your story is being used to build something that your limited perspective cannot yet see. But when God is first, you begin to trust the architect. Even when you cannot read the blueprint, you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And you start asking, what is God building through this? And that question, that single shift in the question, changes the way you walk through every season of your life. Instead of being destroyed by hardship, you are shaped by it. Instead of being paralyzed by uncertainty, you are positioned by it. Instead of being defined by your losses, you are refined by them, because you have a perspective that goes beyond the immediate moment. You have the perspective of a person who knows that the God who sees the end from the beginning has never once been surprised by anything that has happened in your story. And if He was not surprised, then it was not a mistake. It was a step. I want to close this message by bringing these 7 changes together, because they are not 7 separate events. They are one connected transformation. When God is first, your priorities organize themselves around what actually matters. Your fears lose their authority because your anchor is stronger than your anxiety. Your decisions carry wisdom instead of regret. Your relationships transform. The right ones deepen, the wrong ones dissolve. Your identity becomes unshakable, rooted in something that cannot be taken from you. Your discipline becomes relentless, fueled by purpose instead of willpower. And your perspective shifts entirely from the limited view of someone who cannot see the plan to the expanded view of someone who trusts the planner. 7 changes, 1 foundation, God first. Now, I want to speak directly to you. I know some of you watching this right now have been saying, God is first for years, but your calendar does not show it. Your priorities do not show it. Your daily habits do not show it. Your peace level does not show it. Your relationships do not show it. And I am not saying that to shame you. I am saying it because I need you to be honest with yourself, not with me, about whether God is actually first or whether he is just a category in your life. Because there is a difference between a person who believes in God and a person who has built their life on God. You can believe in the sun and still live in the dark. You can believe in water and still die of thirst. Belief is not enough. Position is everything. And the position God belongs in your schedule, in your decisions, in your relationships, in your identity, in your daily routine, in your long-term vision, is first, not second. Not when everything else is handled. Not when you need something. First. Every morning, before the phone, before the news, before the demands of the day. God first. Every decision, before the emotion, before the pressure, before the approval seeking, God first. Every relationship, before the comfort, before the fear of being alone, before the need for validation, God first. Every ambition, before the ego, before the comparison, before the performance, God first. And when that order is established, when that foundation is truly laid, the 7 changes I described today are not possibilities. They are inevitabilities. Because when the foundation is right, the structure cannot help but stand. Now stand up. Decide today, not tomorrow, not after things settle down, not when life gets less complicated. Today, put God first and watch everything else fall into the right place. Your priorities will become clear. Your fears will lose their grip. Your decisions will carry wisdom. Your relationships will align. Your identity will stabilize. Your discipline will become your weapon. And your perspective will expand beyond anything you have been able to see before. 7 changes. 1 decision, God first. Make it today